Hey 7th grade, this is a homework video for homework number 12 for pre-AP. Okay, so number 1, what value of x makes this equation true? So what it means by making it true is we're just trying to find out what does x equal. That's all we're trying to do. What is x value? All right, so this one we have variables on two sides of the equation, and we can only have the x or whatever variable they're using on one side. It doesn't matter if it's on the left or the right, but you need to have it on one side and you need to solve for a number. Okay. In this case, you look at the answer choices and they're all fractions. All right. First thing you want to do is you want to remember when you're solving for an equation or an inequality two-step, you want to do the inverse operation, and we're doing PEMDAS, and we're doing that backwards. So we add or subtract first, multiply or divide second. But in this case, before we can even do that, I have to look at, I've got a 12 times x here and a 3 times x here on opposite sides. They got to be together. We got to combine them. And then I have our constants, one on one side and one on the other. We got to combine them as well. Okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get these, the x values, and we want to combine them. Again, it doesn't really matter which way you do it. You'll still get the correct answer if you do it correctly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3x here, and then I'm going to add 3x here. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because if I were to take 12 away here and take 12 away here, I'd end up with a negative value. So I'm just trying to avoid any negatives. Okay, so a negative 3x and a positive 3x is 0x. 12x and 3x is 15x minus 15 equals 6. Now this is more what you're familiar seeing in 6th grade and then 7th grade. This is what we do. However, you guys are doing 8th grade, so you get to see it on both sides. But once you do that, then again, we're following inverse operations. We're following PEMDAS. Instead of going down, we're going up. We add or subtract first, multiply or divide second. So I have 15 times x minus 15 equals 6. Well, I want to do the add or subtract first, which means since that's subtract, I want to get rid of it by doing the inverse, which is add. I add it here, I add it here, and then I'll be left with multiplication by x, and then you divide. Okay, and finish it off. I'm not going to finish it because I want you to do it, but that's basically the gist. Number 2 is a simple interest problem. Simple interest, the formula is interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. The rate must be in decimal form. You always move your decimal 2 places to the left. Okay, so Mr. Jenkins deposited $1,250 into an account. That's his principal amount, what he starts with. He made no additional deposits or withdrawals. Mr. Jenkins earned 4.25% annual simple interest on the money in the account. What is the balance after 4 years? Okay, so your interest will be the principal times the rate times the time. Now, I just want to remind y'all that if you have compound interest, let's see if I can do this right. 1 plus the rate, and it's the number of times it's compounded. Okay, this is a formula for compound interest. They're different. This one is giving you the interest. Okay, so we're looking for what's the balance at the end of 4 years. So on this one, you'll get the interest, but if he already had this much amount of money, then that means you have to do something else. You have to take this and you got to add the interest, okay? Whereas compound interest, so you got to be careful when you read these questions because sometimes they might ask for the interest, sometimes they might ask for the balance afterwards, which means you're going to add it to the original balance. But compound interest is when you get this A means the account balance with the interest. So it's a little bit tricky. You got to be careful. You got to remember, this is not the interest. It's your account balance with the interest combined. So if they wanted to know, say they were asking compound and they wanted to know what is the interest, you'd have to take the original amount and subtract it from what you get afterwards, and that would give you your interest that you earned only, because this doesn't give you only interest. It includes the balance and the interest, okay? Number 3, they want you to put this into scientific notation. So remember, scientific notation, we're moving the decimal to the first non-zero digit, okay? So if I want to take this number and if I want to put it into scientific notation, I'm going to move my decimal to right here, in between the 1 and the 4. So you count how many places. If you're moving to the right, you have a negative exponent. If you move to the left, you're going to have a positive exponent, okay? So we're moving to the right. How many times? That's pretty simple. Number 4. This is not as confusing as it looks. It looks confusing because all this stuff on here, but all they're looking at the slope. If you look at all the answer choices, the slope, the slope, the slope, the slope, all they're really looking for is this line right here, which is the slope, which measures how steep it is, okay? Before I even answer this, I would look at what's going on here, okay? It says triangle HJK and triangle PMK are similar right triangles, which means if they're similar, they're proportional. The coordinates of all the vertices are integers, which means they're not fractions. They're either positive or negative whole numbers, okay? Which statement is true about the slope of line HK? So we're talking about this line HK, the slope, and then the slope of line PK, which is right here. And then if you read through the answer choices, then it'll simplify it a little bit, okay? So it says they're similar and they're proportional. Okay, it says the slope of line HK is less than the slope of PK because the ratio of the change in Y values and endpoints of the change in X values of the endpoints is less for HK than PK. Okay, that's something I would maybe say, I don't know, I'm going to come back and check it out. Because sometimes when you do that, you might read some of these and you're like, nope, okay, it must be this guy. Sometimes that's the easiest way to do it. G, the slope of HK is equal to the slope of PK because the ratio of the change in Y values to the endpoints to the change in X values of the endpoints is the same for HK as is for PK. H, the slope of HK is greater than the slope of PK. And then the relationship between the slope of HK and the slope of PK cannot be determined, and that's false. Not true. You can get the slope of both of these, okay? Slope on a graph is rise over run. You rise, you run. Okay? What are you rising? What are you running? And sometimes it could go this way. This is a negative slope, so it's going to go down. Okay? So what you could do is you need 2 points to get slope. Rise up, run over. What's my rise over my run? Okay? That would be the slope for this KP. Okay? And then I want to get the slope of this guy. So I could take these 2 points and I could rise and run, or I could also use this right here, rise, run. You're just going down, and it's okay because it's a negative slope. And if they're the same, then that will give you a lot of information right there. If they're not the same, then that also will give you information, okay? So find the slope and then figure it out. Number 5, we've done problems like this before. Just ignore this right here. That's a boo-boo. Okay, the points in the number line represent the values of 4 different numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. They want to know which point best represents the value of square root of 3. Now remember, the square root 1 is 1. Square root, this is 4. 9. Remember how we did this in class? These are perfect squares. This is not a perfect square. Okay? This one fits in between 1 and 4. It's closer to 4. Okay? So I would say, it's like closer over here, which means its value is not going to be a perfect square. It's going to be a decimal. It's irrational, okay, because the numbers are not going to repeat. The numbers are going to keep going on and on and on and not repeat. That makes it irrational. So it's going to be like 1.99, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. They want to know which one of these points would be the value of this. So we know it's not going to be 3, okay? It can't be 3 because this is 3 is way over here, okay? We know it's not going to be 1. That would be this guy right here, okay? So it's really between B or C, and you decide, is it closer to 2 or is it closer to 1, okay? All right, guys, if you have any questions, make sure you come to tutoring. You can come see me, myself, or Miss Pond. And if you want to work with a partner, that's totally fine, as long as you make sure you understand and you are showing all your work. Good luck. I'll see you guys in class.